welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Quest, with me, your host, Vibeke Garnos, always guided by Spirit. I am very excited to share my gift with you and empower you to embrace your gift. So if you define yourself as a spiritual human being, then you've come to the right place. So prepare yourself now for an amazing journey where your soul will lead the way. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Spiritual Quest podcast. When we start exploring our spiritual journeys, we are intuitively drawn to certain modalities or perspectives that resonates with us. We're naturally drawn to certain people, books, and teachings where the energy activates something deep inside us, helping us unlock our innate power. It's almost like knowing another language and slowly remembering how to speak it. I want to start by sharing a short story before I introduce today's guest. So back in 2016, I brought a group of people to Sedona, Arizona. And during one of our hikes on a sacred land, I connected with a spirit known as Chief of the Holy Land. Some people in my group had picked up rocks and were carrying them down the mountain. And the spirit of Chief of the Holy Land stopped me in my tracks to let me know what was happening behind my back. So I turned around and I shared a channeled message about the sacredness of this place and how important the rocks were for the energy flow in the area. And I kindly asked them to respect the land and put the rocks back. And every single one of them put the rocks back where they found them. But that experience activated my personal remembrance of past lives as a Native American. So in today's episode, I've invited spiritual teacher and shaman Tulin Etyemez Schimberg to shine a light on our shamanic practices and how shamanism, I think I'm going to say that again, how shamanism can help us reawaken to the power of the universe. Tulin is also a past life regression specialist and one of the founding members of the Earth Association for Regression Therapy. She has her own school, the Unicorn Transformation Studies, in Turkey, where she teaches regression therapy, ancestor healing, shamanic practices, and women's studies. Tulin believes that by healing the past, we heal the present moment and the future, which I can truly resonate with. It's my deep pleasure to welcome Tulin to the Spiritual Quest podcast. Welcome, Tulin.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here.
It's such an honor to have you join me, Tulin. And being on a spiritual quest myself, rediscovering, gifts and talents, it's very interesting to learn new perspectives, when it comes to your personal spiritual quest or your spiritual journey. And like I told in the story I just shared, I've been reawakened to some, I would say, shamanic interest. And I thought I would bring you on and have you dive even deeper into that knowledge and to share knowledge, wisdom, and insight about how we can practice shamanism. So, would you please just start by sharing a little bit about your own reawakening and also how you use shamanism to unfold your awakening process?
I was born as a fisherman seacoast town, and when I was child, actually the environment was very helpful for me to spread my how to say, internal experiences out. When I was saying that I communicate with the trees and I sense the energies around people, or my best friend was the seashells. Because my grandfather was a kind of spiritual person, so he was listening to me and explaining so many things, and it was increasing my imaginary world. So it all started in my childhood that that natural experiences were natural. But when I started to school, I had to, you know, keep my mouth shut and not share all those experiences, because then you name as a weird person. So a kind of, I may say that the knowledge and experience was there and it was natural, but then it was covered. Since I grew up in an Islamic country, in Islamic knowledge, which also a kind of step in my personal development, but I was kind of keep searching and trying to find my inner, um, how do you say, the core.
Mm-hmm.
At that time I didn't name it that way, but definitely I was searching something else. So that curiosity and adventurous personality of me, and also I was kind of personality, a kind of stubborn personality, go after my fears. And my grandmother died on my bed. So that very tragic experience was kind of opening a different dimension, a different door, because at that time I was 10 and dead of somebody was a kind of deep experience for me. Even when I was entering to the room she passed away, I was sensing her, but I didn't know what is. But I was kind of walking back. I was not even turning. I was all the time sensing her presence, and 6 months I was keep crying. I couldn't understand what I was experiencing. So later on, searching about dead, searching about different dimensions. As you said, all those crystals and rocks, I studied geology. So the first article I met in spirituality was about how ancient people was using crystals for healing. So I figured out the material world, what we see or what we touch, is not limited. There are more about it. So I was all the time curious about that more, what is beyond, what is behind. So that's why accepting whatever you have is one direction, but my curiosity was all the time bring me to the that beyond part. And I met very early 20s age of mine with spiritual association and foundation in Turkey. And so then it was really fitting what I was searching for. And then, as you said about the past life experiences, during my regression therapy teachings, which I'm done with Jeff Ryan, Janet Cunningham, later on Roger Volger, Hans Dendam, Tricia Kaitana, and I was going to do so many past life experiences as a shaman in the nature. Those were not limited with woman or man lives. So in some of them, knowledge was very deep, but in some of them, because of the power issues, also I was misusing my power, and there were consequences which was overlapping with my current life issues. Like, um, it took a long time for me to take my own power, or it took a lot of time for me to use my power. I was all the time, running away from it. So, and I wanted to meet with a shaman. Then my wish came true in 2011. I was visiting my friend Juanita Pudifut, and she introduced me Leo Rutherford. So my first real shamanic training started with Leo and continued with Juanita Pudifut. I really inspired with the work of Sandra Ingerman, and I did a lot of work with Mark Wentford, very, very lovely friend of mine. So then I was discovering different dimensions. Since we always say Turks are shamans, we are coming from the Middle Asia, from Siberia. But then Turks accepted Islamic religion although those shamanic practices really uh, still in the daily practices. So, but it was covered with under the umbrella of religion. But practice and all those beliefs and attitudes are still in the culture. That's why I started to search about shamanism. Then I figured out shamanism is not a religion; it's a way of life, and just using a natural way of life and combining ordinary world and non-ordinary world. So I, since the childhood, I was already experiencing that non-ordinary world. So then it's kind of finding your own sense again, finding something really valuable for you back. And it is a kind of meeting with yourself. You change a lot during that path. It's a kind of journey of a hero, but then this time you are the hero of your life. So yeah, so many practices, so many experiences, and I still continue. And I go to India and Turkey, and I also do a lot of combination with regression therapy and shamanic work, because they have quite similar perspectives. And with you, we were experiencing also life after life. So it's all, you know, the source, the essence is the same.
When you're speaking about the shamanism, there's so like it's a huge what would you call it, mythology. There's other perspectives on how shamanism is how would you say it, practiced in, you know, there's different way of practicing shamanism. So could you share a little bit about the way you practice shamanism? Is there do you define it somehow, or is it everything goes under shamanism, or is it different mythologies based within shamanism?
When
Did you
you go
understand?
to
Yeah.
Siberia or like Native America or Africa or Aborigines or Europe, you know, you can see sometimes the maybe terminology is can change, but the perspective is quite the same. For example, shamans, they accept the other dimensions, so accept life after dying, and uh, everything is energy for shamans. So sometimes, as I said, terminology can be different, or maybe let's start from there. They were describing the world in different dimensions. So when we say the ordinary world is the world what we experience with our five senses, but they were naming that all those beyond the five senses as non-ordinary world. So in that non-ordinary world, they divide its upper world, middle world, and lower world. Lower world actually is action, the below or heart. And so middle world is where we live, but it also covers the disease that people. So for according to the shamans, uh, the dead people, they don't go somewhere else. They are also in the energy field of the world, and but it is like kind of vibration is different. So they were taking everything as an energy. Upper world was much more the purpose, aim, or spiritual guides and teachers. So uh, and also they were kind of searching for the dimensions, meaning of the dimensions. For example, south, according to the middle American natives, uh, was representing the water element. The north opposite side was representing the air element, and the west was related with earth, and the east was related with the fire element. So, but maybe if you go to the Siberia, then they I don't know exactly, but let's say instead of south is representing the water element, they shifted the dimension, And for example, they say, oh, the West is the water element. It doesn't matter. The knowledge is the same, but the intention for the direction can be different. Important
Mm.
thing is the intention. The basic principle, they knew about the elements. They were giving importance to connect with the spiritual guides and teachers, especially with the ancestors. They were all the time receiving guidance. They didn't have the cell phones, how the weather will be, when the storm will come. They didn't have any communication tools. So their communication tools were kind of, how you say, receivers. And so they were looking the sky, observing the sky, and connecting with the animals, because they
Mm.
were in the part of the nature, or which, when there is an illness, which plant is will be help for coughing or different kind of illness, or when you injure, what kind of plant will stop the bleeding, for example, because the conditions of nature, the living conditions, were tough, and they, to survive, they had to stick together and be alert for the outside world, but from the other side, they were also sharing their inner world with the dreams. So according to those native cultures, they name themselves shaman. It's coming from the Tungus tribe from Siberia. Anthropologists, they name it as a shaman, or they didn't say, they didn't have any religion. They didn't name those practices as shamanism. They were just only practicing. It was natural for them, and usually for those sensitive people who were that from the childhood they could see who will be the sensitive and can be, how you say, tendency to be a shaman. And the shaman herself or himself was devoting herself to the whole tribe. So it was not easy thing, because whenever there was something new, the shaman had to bless it, had to send the bad spirits away. When somebody was ill, they had the perspective of a soul part is missing. So the shaman was journeying and finding that missing part and bringing back and blowing to the energy field of the person. So, or when there is a war, all the preparations of the soldiers, or when there is need of food, for the hunters, which direction they have to go to find the buffaloes. So they didn't have all satellites showing where is the all a bunch of animals, and or where is the water source. So they had to have synchronicity with the energy of what they are searching. Now we use that system in the electronics and the communication, but we need some tools, and we develop technology for that. But actually in the past, the body was the tool. They were using more, maybe the hands, or they were using their more frontal cortex to focus on seeing from an animal's, an eagle's eyes. So it was really related with the extending of the consciousness.
Mm.
um, of course, in the when you look at the history, uh, from that from the intuition to the, how to say, using your brain and rationalism, and it was a kind of, how to say, it was a step in the consciousness development of the humanity. And from the moment what we are now, we are living in the beton concrete
Mm.
buildings, so we are not really grounded. I am at
Mm.
the
You're
moment
right.
eighth floor in Istanbul. I'm in the chaos. Even the air I'm breathing at the moment is not really pure. So we are so much away from the nature, but from the other side, the technology is helping us getting more experience, but from the other side we are kind of the distance with our own self is getting more and more deeper and deeper. So that's why the depression problems, anxiety problems, panic attacks, fears, and etc. increasing in the society. So that's why, like as I described, in the childhood we were all connected, then that connection is gone, and in the adult self now we need to re-establish that connection again. So it is same in the human development. As a society, we were connected with the nature, with the rationalism or the uh, how to say rationalism. Then we lost that connection. We established different levels, and now we need to remake the connection again with a different level of consciousness. At that time, when we were living with tribes, there were the personality not developed very well. Now we develop our individuality. At that time, the shaman was doing everything for the whole tribe, so personal responsibility was quite low. But now we improve the personality, individuality. Now we need to be adults to get that responsibility back for the awakening, as you mention all the time. At the opening, you were mentioning about the awakening. So as a period of time, it is the time to re-establish that communication and re-awake again. But awakening in a different level, we will be not the child, but that pure energy, that source is still there. So what I do, I'm not a shaman. I'm a shamanic practitioner. I use the ancient knowledge to adapt current daily modern life. So uh, okay, we don't have a chance to go to the nature and do the drumming, but now I just received my drum. I would like to show. Here it is. So this is
Beautiful.
a, yeah, maybe like this. You can
Yeah.
see more.
Oh, wow. Oh, explain. Yeah, I can see you have a unicorn there. There's different symbols on it. So
Yes,
how strong are symbols in animal symbols and stuff within the shamanism practice?
power animals are actually our internal sources. So they are already there, but they are kind of in a sleep. So to awake that power, first you need to have a possibility to expand that power, to manifest that power. For example, before you got married or intention to be a mother, that motherhood will be on a sleep. Whenever you decide to be a mother, or shall I have a baby or not, then when we got a position in life, then that power needs to be wake up. Like sometimes it's kind of you in the childhood development, you don't give the matches to make fire to a 3 years old child, because that child doesn't have the knowledge to use that fire. But when you this person grown up, then that fire will be used with a purpose. Maybe you will use that fire to cook. Maybe you will use that fire to heat. But for 3 years old or 30 years old or for 90 years old, that fire has different meanings and different abilities in life. So that's why um, like those power animals are symbolic, archetypal, as Carl Jung said, and the archetypes are the universal behaviors which is we all carry. But according to our personality, according to our needs, we just kind of put this power to sleep. But there are some positions in life that we need to reawaken those powers. Then we need to use that power. Then when you are a child, you don't have the responsibility. But when you are adult, then you have the responsibility of using that power in a right way. So the right way comes with the awakening. If you are not awakening, and if you don't do your inner spiritual development, as we all experience now in the world, you create wars, because your consciousness level and spiritual development level require only that war energy. You synchronize with that level. But when you have a kind of spiritual improvement, then you devote yourself not for only sake of your own personal desires. You do it for the whole. You do it for the humanity. You do maybe first for your family, then your country, then for the whole humanity. Then maybe you expand to the whole universe. But depend on your consciousness level, you have kind of level of using that power. And so when the awakening and consciousness increase, then you widen your consciousness, then you become more whole and more harmony. So when we see this harmony, there is a harmony is missing, that means that level of the consciousness still need strong powerful experiences or traumas to learn. We are in duality world, so sometimes we learn love with the way of lack of love. So for example, we learn the real use of power when we got damaged by this power. According to our spiritual needs, we attract all the events what's happening to us. We attract people around us. So it's a kind of, when you synchronize this level, you just attract the events and everything in this level. But when you increase your consciousness in a higher level, then you attract the energies and events and everything in that level. So that power animals helping us symbolically actually awakening that power, and it's a kind of spiritual guidance. But that guidance is internal guidance. It's kind of, in this world now, we always want to get our needs from the outside sources. We want to be loved by somebody. We want somebody nurture us. Okay, when you are a child, when you are a baby, this is necessary. But when you grow up, then you need to activate your internal resources. But since taking from outside is quite easy, because you don't need to put so much effort, but that you get used to it and you want more and more to get it. That's why when I look at the new generation, or when you look at the humanity now, since we get used to receive everything from outside, and we adapt it very easily, then the satisfaction level is very low. You get unsatisfied because you don't put so much effort to it. But like, for example, remember the first time you earn your own money. When you get money from your parents, it was much easy. You were spending maybe very easily. But when you did your first effort to gain that money, then it was more valuable because it includes your energy in it. So it's all about energy. So there is balance, and harmony is very important. As we break that harmony as humanity, so we need to increase our effort again to find it. So The shamans, they were using those archetypes and power animals. As you see here, we have tree of life, and this is I was also asking to myself which direction I need to go, because I have my tools, but what I need to do. So when I was journeying which direction to go, a Anatolian woman, a young one and an elderly one came, and that young one said, "I'm very wounded in my womb." So I figured out that woman is very wounded, sexual problems. You know, in Turkey, in Eastern cultures, uh, they make you marry very young age. So you are a child and playing on the street, and next day you marry and you have to become a woman, age of maybe 12 or 13, or you are still child and you need to give a birth to a child. So that Anatolian woman was very wounded with the sexual abuse, abortions, miscarriages, or in the Eastern cultures, is very important to give a birth to a boy. But if you are giving girl, 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 and then you feel yourself unsuccessful because the heritage has to continue. So that you get valuable when you give a birth to a boy. So also when you are born as a girl, those dynamics, kind of you behave like a boy because you want more acceptance. And nowadays, I'm coming from the corporate companies. I used to work at clinical research for 12 years. So in that environment, to be accepted, I figured that I observed that many women behave like a man, not using their feminine powers and energy. That's why they lose balance. They more move to the masculine side. So then, when I was journeying, I have to do some work with women, and this is my name means mirror, and here is my mirror. And also another mean is, there are sparkling part around the moon, full. Just imagine about the full moon. There is a kind of chamber around the moon. So Tulin also means that chamber around the moon. So when I did my journey, so it was kind of reflections from Tulin's moon mirror. So kind of, see, I had a question asking which direction I need to go. So that answer didn't come outside, it came from my inside sources. But to activate that connection, first, I need to have a question to ask. So that is with your very related with your consciousness. So when you then the answer comes, then all the resources kind of activates and manifests to give your answer. So that phoenix is kind of coming from burning from your own resources, burning from your own ashes. And then this snake came to me. Snake is very related with healing. When you use the right amount of poison of a snake, you can create an healing. But when you use an overdose, then it kills. So it's actually power is something like that. If you are using your own power in a right way and in a right amount, it creates healing, it brings healing, then you manifest healing. But if you just go to the overdose, then it poisons you, it kills you, it harms you. It's everything. We are swinging one duality to another duality. And as I said, sometimes we are learning with the lack of something, but sometimes we also learn by exaggerating. So we exaggerate using that power, or we exaggerate and we go to the victim side, or we exaggerate and we become proprietors. So we are swinging from one side to another, but the real balance and harmony comes at the middle. You don't swing anymore. Whenever you are neutralized, then you have a chance to jump to the higher reality. So shamans were using the maps like north, south, east, and west, and cardinal directions, and also that side directions. But the map is not the real the land. So when you are walking on the land, maybe the conditions will be different, but the map will help you. It's a tool, and you need to learn to read the map. Then you can use it to find your own way. So I see shamanic work is a map. So it's a tool, and we don't stick to the tool. As I said, intention is important. It doesn't matter you name south as a water element or west as a water element. If you know the water element is related with your emotions, and all those emotions actually established in the childhood, then we can use that knowledge to connect and to heal our wounded child part of us. So that perspective, that tool, I'm teaching how you say to use in the daily practices. Like we are maybe we will do also here today to find your power animals, or meeting with your power animals, meeting with your own resources, your own powers, and but we need to activate them. We need to feel, we need to give a kind of target to them. Without any target, without any intention, it doesn't activate. If you just stay and wait, it doesn't come to you. You have to start. It's coming with the effort.
Yes, and I would love to share a story with you, Tulin, because many years ago, I was around 30 years old, and I went into the dark night of the soul. I'm not going to take the whole story because I have told the story previous on my podcasts, but I went into a depression. It was a very dark period, and it was after I had my second child, and I've lost my sense of purpose and direction in life. And I remember laying in a dark room, surrendering, completely surrendering to whatever the unknown, saying that if this is meant for me to leave this planet at this time, then so be it. I
Hmm.
was completely surrendering. And I fall asleep crying. And when I woke up a couple of hours later, something had shifted within me. Not only could I hear my soul speak to me, I heard something that I haven't heard within myself since I was a child, that playful, beautiful voice of reassurance, inspiration, love, the unconditional love I could hear. But what happened the days following is that that's when I first met my power animal. This tiger, which I named Marcana, walked next to me for a long period of time. We were like inseparable. And I know it sounds weird for people listening who thinking, did she really lose it? But it was so real that I could even I think I told my husband this. I said, I have this tiger. I can see him so clearly. It's next to me. And it gives me such strength and power, and knowing that I have to walk my path alone, and that everything, as long as I follow the rhythm of nature and allow it to unfold and just allow my guiding system to lead me, this tiger will walk next to me. And she did. I called her Americana. I felt like it was a feminine energy. It was my power coming forward, embracing me with love again. But I didn't know too much about shamanism. It was just something naturally that unfolded when I decided to surrender and open myself up. And I've always loved nature. And I remember when I was a child, I told my mother that I had to live by the water. The water represents the ability for me to see clearly and to look deep within the water to see what was waiting for me to uncover. It was something, it was like a purifying experience being by the water. And so I've always naturally been drawn to water. And not only that, the trees, I would always speak to the trees. And all of this I've done, like I said, it came natural to me. And not until I started really to explore the different modalities and practices within the spiritual realm did I discover shamanism and started to, and when then I discovered this life as I used my gift and channeled Chief of the Holy Land, I said, well, maybe there's something here that I should look into, something more that lies within me that could assist me in creating and co creating with Mother Earth, with the universe, with all life, and to feel that oneness again that I feel so drawn to. I really, truly, honestly, when I'm in nature, I get filled up. It's the intention of me walking in nature. I'm very powerful when it comes to placing my intention, knowing now I'm present. I'm walking here to be in tune with Mother Earth in spirit and just allowing myself to be. And that's when I can hear the wind talk to me. I can feel um, the wind caress me. I can hear the waves telling stories. I can hug a tree and I can feel the energy or the communication that goes on between the trees. And it's just, there's like this whole wondrous world that opens up when you allow yourself to be
You
present.
mentioned a very important word of surrender, because, like, the outside world, the ordinary world, guides us to a different dimension. So there is a kind of structure, and you are trying to fit in that structure. And that ordinary world has have to, should to, might to, all those obligations you have to follow. And but the life is not something like that. Then the life has its own flow. So when you are against the flow, you spend all your energy to resist to it. And then the depression is kind of, you are going the opposite direction of your own spiritual life path. That's why then all the energy is missing. So is something going wrong? So, but that depression or challenges or traumas and sometimes life crises are necessary to turn your way to the right direction to flow. So if you followed all those signs of life, and if you find, uh, if you really awaken to it, or if you start listening to it, then you find you have another chance. Sometimes we don't have that, I would say, flexibility. That's why, like, heart attacks or divorces, or like bankrupting, or like death of somebody, or separations, illnesses, all those traumas actually is a kind of help for us to go find our right direction. If you are flexible and if you kind of slightly into it, then you start to flow again, or the life says bomb, it's a kind of shock. And sometimes that is the good solution, because we are so resistant. How we can change? We are so much stuck in one direction. So that's why the shamans, they were not taking the dead as a really bad thing. For them, all those bad and negativity, hell was in this world. So they were thinking that when one door is closed, another door is opening. That's why they were preparing themselves for an easy passage, or the shamans, one of the function was to help a deceased person to have an easy passage and continue the soul journey, not to stuck in this world, because they knew that all those ego and all those desires for the material world stuck you, then you cannot live easily. Or for example, if you are so much feeling pity about something, um, if you are sorry about so many things, and then all those, oh, I had to do this but I didn't, then all you stuck, you cannot move. And the life is okay, we have sometimes circles, the chambers, we are in the same pattern, but whenever we get a consciousness and when we ask why I am experiencing this, then kind of you just disassociate yourself from it, then you see from outside, then you can get the source, then you can go into it and you can shift. So I advise our followers and listeners, look at your own life. What are your repetitions in life? What kind of theme, what kind of loops you are circling again and again? That can be relationship problems, that can be health problems, that can be maybe problems at work. There are always repetitions. So take it not a kind of punishment of your life, or it always happening to you. You know, the victim position can be easily, we can stay in it, and sometimes we enjoy it. That's why
Yes, strangely enough.
and you can spread that, you know, when somebody, oh, in a pity, then we all cry together. But from the other side, if you make an effort to ask question, what is the function of this, why I attract this to my life, and how can I change it, then we can have a perspective or a chance to shift that energy, stuck energy. So I kind of metaphor, using a metaphor for it, uh, like imagine you are swimming in a lake. You know, in the bottom of the lake there are some seagrasses, so you want to go to the you see the top, you see the light, you want to go to the top surface of the lake, but those grasses, seagrasses, grab your feet. You try hard to go up to the light, but then it becomes more stuck, it grabs you more. Actually, to release those grasses which is grabbing you, you just need to stop and just leave it. Then the tension release, then all those grasses grabbing you more relaxed, then you had a chance to get a kind of power from the bottom of the lake, then you can go to the surface. So what we are, like, we are using so many medicines, or we are using kind of television programs, or we are using drugs, alcohol, or sex, or sugar. Go to the chocolate, but it doesn't bring the real satisfaction to our soul. We are so much stuck in the material world. It okay, we are learning into in it. This is a kind of experiencing the material world is the main target of the soul. So you are kind of empowering yourself as a soul being. You are kind of practicing your knowledge in the material world. It's kind of, you know, all the theories, but then you go to the laboratory and you are doing all those experiences. Okay, sometimes you just mix the wrong chemicals, then there is an explosion. But then you are returning to the laboratory back to improve that experiment and making more better and better results. So this world, this material world, is our laboratory, is the laboratory or soul being. So that's why we need to not waste this life.
Mm.
It's a good opportunity, and it's not easy to born to this world. It's not easy. You look at your body, this is a miracle. How complicated. It's a kind of microcosmos. Okay, there is a macrocosmos outside, but we have also microcosmos inside. All those nerves and connections. Oh, I actually, why we are using drum? Because when you do 200 220 beats per minute, it puts your brain to the alpha state. It is a kind of dreaming state. Then your imagination is activated in the brain. So for the brain to remembering the whatever really happened in the past, and with the imagining, the same point of the brain is activated and working. So by using visualization is actually we are kind of closing all those open loops. Then the brain says, oh, it is done. So you make a kind of tick, it's done. So uh, then you don't repeat, you are not in that circle anymore, you don't need to repeat that loop anymore, then you are out of it. That's why imagination and visualization is very important. So in this world, like okay, we create our metaverses and etc, and it's like humanity uh, activating the power of another dimensions, but we are still in this material world, so we need to keep the balance. My husband and me, we are sailors, you know. When you have a sailing boat, when you have a higher mast, you also need a deeper keel to keep the
Yeah.
balance.
Mm.
So I'm much more fan of grounded spirituality.
Mm.
So to go more higher in the spiritual realms, you also kind of grounded more deeper in this world to keep the balance. That's why life is the big teacher. So
Mm. Love
I'm
that.
actually, I don't name myself teacher, but I'm a kind of practitioner. Whatever, since I'm an engineer, I always like the shortcuts, and I'm more result oriented. And I kind of, when I apply a technique, is it really helping or not? So that's why my this logic, when I combine it with the emotions and spirituality and etc, whatever useful, I use it. Then if it's not helping me anymore, then I just leave it, and I try to get a different way to do it. And so that's why the improvement, then you improve, then you expand. So otherwise we stuck in one reality, or we stuck in one dimension, or we stuck with one perspective. But as Einstein said, we cannot solve the problems in the same level of the problem. We need to go over it, outside, beyond it, to resolve the problem. So that's why that shamanic practices, regression therapy, or ancestor work, so many practices, or healings, there are so many practices. Just apply it and see really it's working for you or not. Without trying it, how you can know that it is for you or not?
You're
So
right. And
uh,
trusting your intuition when there's so much out there that you can just Google spiritual practices. You're going to be overloaded by techniques and methods and whatever. So I think it's very important to listen intuitively to what resonates. And then, like you said, expand as you move along, and you will see that some of these practices might needed to adjust to fit your new resonance within that new vibration. And that's how you find new practices. That's how I discovered shamanism after I've gone through what I've gone through, and I've practiced and I've discovered new techniques, and I started to, attract, to look for, and more information about shamanism came into my life. I started to read and I learned a little bit more about that, and it's just that's how you're staying true to your spiritual path. Like you said, try it out, see how it resonates, and then move from there, that state. I think that's a very powerful message to bring to anyone listening.
And we don't need to name it. We don't name the I'm shaman or something. Like when I was in India, being a guru is an important thing, a statue. They kind of try to name me as shamanic guru. And I said, no, I'm not a guru. Then they said to me, what you are? I said, I'm kind of seeking. And
I'm
finally
a
we were
seeker of truth, my universal truth.
no, then I said, okay, if you really want to give me a name, then you can name me Chief Seeker.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes, it's so funny because every time people ask me if I do an interview or it's always been that way. So, what do you call yourself? And I'm like, well, there's so many labels and I don't resonate with any of the labels, but sometimes um, you know, I decided just to come up with my own label, which I usually use now, which is New Earth Strategist. That's how I look at myself when I go out into the world. I want to find new strategies, new perspectives, and I want to make sure that it's all about creating a better, more loving, high vibrational Mother Earth where everyone lives through oneness and compassion, a more compassionate world. What is better than that? So I make up my own, just like you.
Yes, we are compassionate seekers. What or compassion is about finding our core self or authentic self or real self. Because what we experience that we are not limited with this body. So we are not limited with our emotions or feelings or thoughts or beliefs. We are more beyond that. So you gave the water example. So I want to expand that metaphor that like we are like a flying fish, like we are in the water, in the ocean. So it is, or let's name it, it is the ordinary world for us. We are so used to live in the ocean, but then there is a kind of something attracting us to the surface. Then you develop your wings, and then you just go over your ordinary world. You fly and fly and fly, but again you are back into your own ordinary world. But by flying we experience that uh, different transpersonal altered states. So that altered states, like flying over another dimension, another realm, you are back to the earth again, to the your ocean. But each time then you try to extend the period of staying in the air or staying much longer. And when you see the others staying together with you longer, you just try to make it much longer. Or when you do it together, then it is much deeper. Maybe you go much higher. The thing is, we are back to the ocean always.
Mm,
Uh, so we have to remind ourselves the life is the real teaching. That's why we are here. That's why we are in this world, to experience the material world. And but those experiences will turn to more deeper core knowledges. And so those altered states of mind showing us there are more other dimensions. We are not limited with that dimension, but still we are in this ocean.
mm.
So And when we die, the body will stay here, but our consciousness will carry all those experiences to different dimension as the consciousness, uh, and that our soul will be awakening it's in it, and the personality will stay here. Tulin or Vibeke will stay here, but what will continue not depend on that personality. The personality has gaps. Personality has ego, and ego is our kind of engine. That's why with this ego self, then we move, we action. Otherwise, we stop. And that's why, or that ego self creates our desires. But the thing is, you create an energy, but which direction you will guide that energy to? So that's why it's our challenge in this world. With whole humanity has that challenge. We have the knowledge, we have the ability, but will you use that power and knowledge for the higher purposes of the humanity, or with the ego self to get a kind of power gain? So the power game always play over money, play over sexuality, play over kind of authority, and etc. The thing is, if you have a kind of teenager, then your parents, your authority, and then they tell you what to do because they have, let's say, wider consciousness. They kind of know what is good for you or bad for you. But now, as a humanity, we have to grow up. That means growing up is taking your own responsibility. So, but now it is easy for the majority to give the power away, and to behave like a teenager is the easy way because they tell you what to do. But when
Yeah,
you
you
have
don't have to look far. You can just pick up your iPhone or your phone. You'll see you're giving your power away. Well, thank you so much, Tulin. I mean, time is flying and I'm having such a wonderful time
yes,
with you. But before we end this conversation, is there anything that you could share of inspiration for our audience today?
just don't limit yourself, go beyond because you are beyond, and keep searching.
Keep searching. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Tulin, for sharing your knowledge and insight wisdom with us. I appreciate, honestly, everything you do for humanity and for Mother Earth and all her children. So thank you.
Yeah,
And I
my
just want to
pleasure.
let people who's listening or watching, if you want to learn more about Tulin and her work, then make sure you check out the episode description and you'll find all the information to Tulin right there. And remember also, you can join me and my guests live. Every month, I go live with one of my previous guests who will teach on their topic. So make sure you sign up for the Spiritual Quest newsflash to get notified and join the next Spiritual Quest live stream masterclass for free. You'll find the link in the episode description. I got some exciting news to share. The Spiritual Quest Masterclasses is finally here. Some of my favorite podcast and livestream guests are now sharing their knowledge, wisdom, and insight with you through the Spiritual Quest Masterclasses, where they teach on their topic and share valuable resources in support of your spiritual quest. You can learn more about the Spiritual Quest Masterclasses by clicking the link in the episode description. If you find these conversations valuable, please leave a review in your favorite podcast app. That would make my heart bubble with joy. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sending you lots of love and light from me, your host, Vibeke Garnels, always guided by Spirit.